They ignored his birthday, so he faked an illness. His daughter brought contracts. His son brought silence. But his final move? It shocked them all. The man who once built empires now sat alone in a room full of silence. Martin Hale, 71, billionaire, founder of Hale Global Holdings, was surrounded by luxury. Marble floors reflected gold chandeliers. The fireplace danced with controlled elegance, but no warmth touched his heart. Not anymore. It was his birthday. Not a single soul remembered. No call from his daughter, Rachel. No visit from his son, Philip. Not even a video message. Only his assistant had wished him with a scheduled text. And the worst part? Martin was not surprised. He had always known his wealth came with a price. But today, that price felt heavier than ever. His family had grown distant, not by accident, but by habit. Every encounter revolved around inheritance, shares, and bank accounts. No one asked how he felt. No one cared about the man behind the billions. Until he had an idea. What if he became helpless? Not dead, just fragile. What if his billions vanished? Even just temporarily? What if his name no longer opened doors and his signature meant nothing? Would they come then? Would they still pretend to love him? He picked up his phone and made a private call. "I need your help," he told his lawyer, Alan. "I want to disappear. Not physically, but legally. Strip me of power, block the accounts. I want everyone to believe I am no longer capable. I want to see who stays." Alan hesitated. "You want to pretend you're sick? Martin, that could backfire." "I have to know," Martin whispered. "Before I die, I need to know if anyone truly cares." 3 days later, news quietly spread through private family channels. Martin Hale had suffered a major neurological breakdown. He could still speak, but barely. Could recognize faces, but sometimes forgot names. According to the hospital report, arranged by Martin himself, the condition was irreversible. He would never again manage his business. A full-time nurse was assigned. A legal power of attorney was transferred temporarily to Alan. Rachel read the message and replied with a thumbs-up emoji. Philip did not respond at all. Martin sat by the window as the sun dipped below his estate's private vineyard. His trembling hand rested on the blanket. He did not need to pretend too much. The years had already stolen some of his strength. The illness, though fake, began to feel real in his bones. That night, no one came. No knock on the door, no phone call. He told himself it was too soon. Give them time. But time only deepened the silence. A week passed. Then 2. Finally, on the 15th day, the front gates buzzed. His heart raced. He waited. It was Rachel. She walked in, not with tears or flowers, but with documents. "Daddy, I heard," she said with a sigh. "Listen, I think it's time we discuss the estate. If something happens, Philip will ruin everything." Martin blinked. You came to talk about money?" She placed the papers on his lap. "Please just sign where I marked. Alan said you still have moments of clarity." He stared at her, his own daughter, not even pretending to care. Outside the room, Alan watched silently from a camera feed. And then Rachel said something that shattered him. "I wish you had just died. At least things would be easier." Martin turned his face to the window. Not even a tear came out. He had none left.
The signature line on the document stared back at him. Rachel's pen was already uncapped, hovering just inches from his hand. Martin's fingers twitched. Not because of the pretend illness, but because of the truth it revealed. All his life, he had believed that building an empire would give his children everything he never had: comfort, security, and love. But what he gave them instead was entitlement. Rachel stood impatiently. "Dad, come on. You know I'll protect everything. Philip's a mess. He never cared like I did." He wanted to ask, "Then where were you when I needed a hug, not a lawyer?" But he said nothing, only looked at her. She adjusted her sunglasses, as if that would hide her coldness. "I'll be back tomorrow. Don't think too hard. You know what's best." And she left. No kiss, no warmth. Just papers and silence. That night, the nurse brought him tea. She was in her 30s, humble, with tired eyes. Her name was Eliza. She had been assigned to Martin by the lawyer's office just to keep up appearances. "Did your daughter visit?" she asked softly. Martin nodded. "She left a contract, not concern." Her hands paused. She sat next to him on the velvet chair. "Can I tell you something, Mr. Hale?" He turned slowly. "My father died last year. He was a janitor, made less in a month than you probably spend on socks. But I held his hand until his last breath, because he gave me everything that mattered: time, honesty, and presence." Martin blinked. That night, he could not sleep. Not because of guilt, but because of clarity. Rachel was not to blame. She had become who she was because he had been too busy being a boss and not a father. The next day, Philip finally arrived. Unshaven, dressed in a hoodie, he had not stepped foot in the estate in 6 years. He entered Martin's room, eyes bloodshot, not from sadness, but from a late-night party. "Yo, old man, heard you're crashing. Real shame." He looked around. "This place still smells rich. So, what's the plan now? Is Alan gonna handle everything, or do we talk numbers?" He stared at him, searching for even a flicker of emotion. Nothing, not even discomfort. Philip pulled out his phone and casually scrolled. "You know, I'm not good at this sick people thing, but I showed up. That counts for something, right?" He stayed for 6 minutes, then left. Martin felt a sharp pressure in his chest, but it was not physical. It was the collapse of belief. The final confirmation that his legacy had turned into leverage, that the people he had raised had turned into strangers who simply carried his last name. That night, Martin told Alan, "It's time. Release the second phase." Alan nodded grimly. "What about the will?" Alan asked. Martin looked up. "I am rewriting it, from scratch, and neither of them will see it coming." 3 days later, Martin held a secret gathering at the back of his estate. No media, no grand invitations, just 5 people. 5 individuals who had once worked for him, served him, helped him, or simply shown kindness when they had nothing to gain. Eliza, the nurse, was one of them. So was Daniel, the security guard who had worked 16 years without asking for a raise. Martin's voice, though frail, was steady. "You are here because when I was powerless, you saw me as a person, not a wallet." He signed a fresh will in front of them. Rachel and Philip were not mentioned, not once. Elijah cried. Daniel's hands trembled. Why us?" one whispered. Martin finally smiled. because you were the only ones who remembered that I was still human." And with that, the pen dropped from his hand. Part 3. When the will was read, the room fell silent. 2 weeks later, Martin Hale was gone. Not dead, not hospitalized, simply vanished. He had retreated to a private island villa, far from city noise, lawyers, or family manipulation. Only Eliza and Alan knew where he was. The world believed he was still ill and resting under medical care. Rachel and Philip, meanwhile, were not resting at all. They fought daily, in boardrooms, over email, even in public. The media began to notice. "Hale legacy in turmoil," the headlines read. Shareholders panicked. Rachel blamed Philip for leaks. Philip accused Rachel of manipulating Martin during his final days of clarity. Their greed was louder than their grief. And then came the letter. A private courier arrived at the Hale estate. One envelope, handwritten, stamped with Martin's personal seal. Rachel and Philip sat at opposite ends of the long dining table, glaring. Alan stood between them, holding the letter. "This is from your father," he said, "his last formal communication to the both of you." Rachel scoffed. "What is this, another guilt trip?" Philip rolled his eyes. "Probably more restrictions on the trust fund." Alan unfolded the letter and began to read aloud. "To Rachel and Philip, my blood, but not my heart. If you are hearing this, it means I have seen your truth. Not the rehearsed version you show in board meetings, but the raw one I saw when I needed you most. I was never sick in body, only in soul. I pretended to be helpless, to see who would stand beside me when I had nothing left to give. What I found broke me. Rachel, you brought contracts, not comfort. Philip, you brought sarcasm, not support. You brought expectations, not love." Rachel stood up. "This is insane! He was manipulated!" But Alan raised a hand. "I am not leaving you with nothing. I am leaving you with something far rarer than wealth: truth. The inheritance you believed was yours by birth is now in the hands of those who showed me kindness without price. Maybe now, stripped of entitlement, you will remember how to be human. If you wish to rebuild, not the money, but the relationship, my doors will always be open, but not for your lawyers, for your hearts." Silence. Pure, sharp silence. Philip's face turned red. "He can't do this! We'll fight it!" Rachel grabbed her phone. "We're suing Alan! This is a setup! Dad's brain was fading! This cannot be legal!" But Alan was already walking away. The letter lay on the table, heavy, final. Thousands of miles away, Martin sipped tea beneath a soft sunrise. The ocean breeze touched his face. Eliza walked beside him, reading a book aloud. Daniel trimmed a tree in the background. "Did they receive the letter?" Martin asked. Alan, on video call, nodded. Martin closed his eyes. "And how did they respond?" "Like wolves losing meat," Alan replied gently. Martin smiled sadly. "Then they never really saw me." 1 month passed. Then 2. And then, unexpectedly, a visitor arrived. It was Rachel. No makeup, no assistance, just a single suitcase and puffy eyes. Eliza opened the villa door, unsure what to say.
"I know," Rachel whispered. "I was awful. I do not want the money. I just want a chance to talk to my father like a daughter. For real." Martin stepped out from behind the curtain. For the first time in years, he did not see greed in her face. He saw regret. And that was a beginning. Final message. Sometimes the wealth that matters most is hidden in moments of truth. You cannot inherit love. You must earn it.